I'm Michael Bain, and welcome to our second Triggered Special, of course brought to you by Midway USA, just about everything for shooting, hunting, and the outdoors. The specials are something new on the michaelbain.tv site, and they're designed to bring you information that you need to know. Today we're going to be talking about active shooters, something that's been in the headlines now for the last month. Joining us are Tom Givens from Rangemaster and Ed Monk from Last Resort Training, two of the best experts in the country on understanding active shooters and what you need to do should you find yourself trapped in this horrible situation. Let's take a listen. Let's talk a little about the active shooter situation. It's obviously it's on everybody's mind, specifically, what's happened over the last couple of weeks. Do you have a sense of the mindset of the active shooter?
There are so many different motivations now. The guy in Boulder, whether anybody wants to admit it or not, is a classic sudden jihadi syndrome. Whether anybody wants to say that out loud or not is you call it whatever you want to call it. They're still searching for a motive. Well, they're really stupid then, okay, to put it bluntly. The guy the week before in Atlanta, apparently just a nutcase. What can you say? A disturbed individual. There is no way to prevent people like that because you don't know who they are till they do their thing. So there's no way to prevent that. I guess you could make the place a gun-free zone, then they couldn't come in and murder people in cold blood.
It works so well.
It's hard for me to believe that anybody is so stupid and naive to think putting a sign on the door. Somebody has made up his mind, I'm going to go to this location, I'm going to murder innocent men, women, and children in cold blood. And they get up to the building and go, damn, look at that, I can't do it now. Nobody's that stupid. Obviously, it's just part of a different agenda. What you see recurring over and over and over again is all the victims are unarmed. So these people actively go to places. James Holmes, the guy that shot up the Aurora, Colorado Theater, perfect example. The night he did that, he shot up the opening of The Dark Knight Rises. 7 theaters within a 20-minute radius of his apartment were showing that same movie that same night. He did not pick the one closest to his home. He did not pick the one furthest from his home. He did not pick the one with the largest audience. He picked the only one out of 7 that had no gun sign on the door. Now, can I tell you with 100% authority that was his sole motivation for picking that place? No, but I don't believe in coincidence a whole lot. I really don't. That's something I learned a long time ago. And I believe he, as with many other active shooters, went there because he felt confident that was a place he could be the only guy with a gun. It's just in my program tomorrow, we're just going to go over incident after incident after incident after incident where people do unspeakable things, and of course, all of their victims are unarmed. To me, a somewhat accelerating pace of active shooters doesn't mean we need to put up more gun-free zone signs. It means more people need to carry. And when Ron Borsch is retired now, but he worked for the Southeast Area Law Enforcement Academy in Ohio for many years and made it his life's work to study active killers and try to figure out what to do about it. And one of the things he found, looking at quite a few of them over a couple of decades, was that when the police arrive and intervene, the average number of people killed is 14 point something. We'll just round off, say 14. When an armed citizen on the scene intervenes, the average number of people killed is 2. So all gun-free zones managed to do is drive the body count up by a factor of 7. Why that would be desirable, I don't know. So obviously, if somebody has to bring a gun to the scene to stop the problem, that's not going to be as efficient as somebody on the scene with a gun to stop the problem. It shouldn't take a genius to figure that out.
But still, I mean, I've run over the course of the 14 years of Best Defense. I mean, we ran a lot of active shooter, and toward the end, we ran some pretty sophisticated ones, and that's the only solution.
Yeah.
I mean, if you run the sim, armed civilian intervening is literally the only solution that works.
Yeah. Usually, when the police intervene, the shooting's over by the time they get there. In fact, more often than not, the perpetrator's suicided before the police arrive. So they arrest the dead guy. So I don't see how that really helps the problem. So you can't really identify them before the fact putting up a sign doesn't help. Waiting on the police doesn't help. So the only alternative is get armed and trained and take care of yourself.
For a person beyond that, let's say you find yourself in the worst case and you're caught in the King Soopers, or you're caught in the Pulse nightclub, or you fill in the blank.
Mm.
What gives you the greatest odds of surviving?
Being very, very stealthy about getting into a place to take a shot and taking a shot and not talking to people. You're under no obligation in any state in the U.S. to verbally challenge somebody who's actively shooting innocent people. Shut up and shoot. Brendan, that's Brendan McCown about that. Brendan was in a mall in Oregon when a guy had been on meth for several days, decided to take his rage out on the world by shooting people in a mall. And McCown had a licensed firearm on him, but instead of shooting the guy who's shooting children with an AK, challenged him, "Hey, you evildoer, put the gun down," which point Maldonado turned around and put 4 rounds into McCown's torso. He survived, but he's paralyzed from the chest down for the rest of his life. There's no reason in the world to talk to a man who's shooting children with an AK. Shoot him.
And it's actually hard. I was surprised. A couple of 3 years back, CBS did a sim to prove that guns won't help you.
Right.
And a bunch of people came over to my house to watch it, and they got done. They're like, "All right, smartass, you're the guy that runs sims on active shooters. Tell me how you solve that situation." So it's not even hard. He let people go out of the room.
Yeah.
Said, "I would have happily walked out of the room. The door he can't see me from the door. I can see the back of his head. I would shoot him in the head, in the back." And literally to a person, they said, "You would shoot him in the head, back of the head, without a warning?" I said, "Why wouldn't I?"
Yeah.
Why wouldn't I?
Why would I call his attention to me? Yeah.
My goal is I don't want to get shot.
Yeah.
But I think it's television. I mean, in that sense,
It is.
Media tells us that the good guys always say, "Drop that gun."
Give him the first shot. The trouble is that one might hit you between the eyes.
Depends on what you get the first shot with.
Yeah.
What else can people do if you're unarmed in that grocery store?
Find the nearest exit. If it says employees only, nobody cares. Just go through it. Keep going.
That's an interesting point. I'd like you to maybe expand on that, because that was something from Dr. April.
Mm-hmm.
Is on a couple of the sims we ran, he goes, "You understand, you have to give people permission to break the rules." So if you could talk a little about that.
Absolutely. We at the NTI for years, they ran sophisticated scenarios like that. People would be sitting at a long conference table. This happened one of the years I was there. And a long conference table, and these 2 guys with shotguns come in the door at the end. They're going to rob everybody in the meeting. And right here is an exit, but sign above says employees only. People didn't go at it. And then the debrief, "Why didn't you?" Well, the sign said, "Well, who cares what the sign says? It's a door. It works the same whether it has a sign or not. Go through it." Oh.
We laugh, but people are so oriented toward following rules.
I know. Yeah, but that's not always the best plan for survival.
The best way you can do is get out.
Sure. I'll give you a double money back guarantee. You'll survive every single violent confrontation you don't get involved in.
What about, this is something that we saw in the Kenya Mall incident, the idea that cover comes with a time clock attached to it. If you duck behind cover, it doesn't mean the active shooter is asleep.
Now, if you look at some of the higher body count events over the last 10 years, the shooters actively sought people under furniture, looking under desks, under chairs. Klebold and Harris and Columbine actually hunted people under tables and desks and whatnot, laughed at them and shot them. It's all on surveillance camera. James Poe shot a number of people in Florida years ago, actively went under cabinets and tables and stuff shooting people. Major Hassan in Texas actively sought out people under desks and tables and shot them repeatedly in the head. Most of his fatalities were people that were hiding. The whole idea of run, hide, fight just annoys me greatly. Run where, hide where, fight with what? So unless you brought your gear, you're not going to get to fight with it. So people need to understand that nobody has a more vested interest in your personal safety than you do. Nobody has more at stake than you do. and nobody's actually responsible for your personal safety but you. The government is not responsible for your well-being. They're responsible for maintaining order and prosecuting lawbreakers, not for act as your bodyguard.
That's one thing that I didn't fully understand until the pandemic, when I realized how many people are obsessed with a level of safety that simply cannot exist in the real world.
Yeah. Jeff Cooper once said, "Life is a sexually transmitted disease that is invariably fatal." You're not getting out of this alive. What we have to learn to do is manage, minimize, and mitigate risk. We cannot eliminate risk. Risk is everywhere in life. I can't walk across the parking lot without getting run over by a car if I don't get my head out of my ass and look around and see what's going on. Same thing applies everywhere we go in public. You got to get your head up, open your eyes, turn the damn screen off, pay attention to what's going on around you. If people would simply do that, that reduces their risk enormously, whether it's from getting run over by a blue hair in a Cadillac, or it's walking off a loading dock breaking your leg, or it's getting stuck up by that thug that got out of that ragged old Buick over there, walked all the way over here with a pistol in his hand, but you didn't see him because you're preoccupied with crap on your cell phone. People would just learn to be aware that the world's a hazardous place. We cannot make it all butterflies and unicorns. It's going to be a hazardous place. It has been from day one, and it will be long after we're gone. And simply adapt to that. Say, I live in a perilous environment. I ought to take care of myself.
I believe you're saying it's carry your damn gun.
That's a good start. Yeah. The people I used to try to figure out how to change their mind. Now I just laugh in their face that, well, I want to carry a gun when I might need it. Now, what the hell is that? My question is, if you only carry a gun when you're going somewhere where you're going to need it, why in the hell would you go there, moron?
It's true.
I don't go anywhere I think I need a gun. I keep finding myself in places I need a gun, but fortunately I always have one, so it works out.
Years of laziness led to this very moment. Looks like Stan's gonna need some help. Let's get some organization in here. Some lighting, some security, some monitoring.
That does look nice.
Imagine that! There's more room in an organized vault. Keep your valuables organized, safe, and secure with Lockdown. Secure your lifestyle.
Welcome back to our Triggered Special on active shooters. When I heard Ed Monk's presentation on active shooters at TACCOM in Dallas a few weeks ago, I was very impressed, and I knew that I wanted to get that information out. Let's go to the interview. Ed, talk a little bit about what people don't understand about active shooters.
Well, they don't understand the importance of time and math. They think the goal is to stop the active shooter, and really it's to stop the active shooter quickly. They're all going to stop eventually. So getting someone to confront and stop him in the first 30 seconds really mathematically gives you the best chance at a single-digit victim count, 1 to 9 victims. And that's what I always offer to organizations to try to make a goal, is 1 to 9 victims. And if you run the math because of how long it takes for a 911 call to be made, and then that 911 operator to call dispatch to notify police, and then police travel, and then police action, that's why we have 30 to 50. If any organization's plan requires a 911 call to put the plan into action to stop the active shooter, it will always be double digits. It'll probably always be 20 or more. So the only mathematical way I know of to have a good chance at a single-digit victim count is to have enough armed people on site that one of the armed people will be close enough to see it or hear it, so they can get to them quickly within 30 seconds and stop it. If the person with the gun does not hear it or see it, then you have to wait on the radio 911 travel time, and that's what gets us up in the double digits.
I think that was one of the most striking things that you said, sitting in the presentation, is when somebody says, well, no casualties are acceptable, 0 casualties are acceptable, and you said that's not the real world, that's not what's going to happen. How do you talk about why that is, that mentality is 0 casualties are acceptable, but there's no plan that's going to yield that?
Correct. There's almost no place you can 100% prevent someone from coming into and shooting the people there. So on the day that person shows up and starts shooting people, you're always going to have victims. And so the problem, again, is not stopping him, it's stopping him quickly, unless you're just willing to let him shoot until he runs out of ammo, or you're willing to wait the 5 to 10 minutes for a police officer to show up and solve the problem. But with the average being someone shot every 10 seconds, if you're going to wait on the 911 call and the radio call and the police travel time, you can't get away from the math. You're going to have a lot of people shot.
And so the implication for that is someone trapped in an active shooter situation is it's on them to do something, because by the time the police get there, the situation may well have resolved itself with a lot of dead bodies.
More importantly, it's on the shoulders of organizational leaders to have a plan in place that allows action by people on site to end it quickly. If you're somewhere and policy has prevented you from being able to defend yourself, then you're a sitting duck, you're a fish in a barrel. And we have to get the leaders of organizations such as schools, churches, businesses, government offices to take ownership of the victim count. When I go through the presentations, when I talk to organizations, I ask the leader, what is an acceptable number of people to be shot when this thing is over? And they look at me like I'm crazy, like that's a stupid, why would you ask me that question? I have no idea, and that's the problem. They have no idea. They have no plan for stopping it early. They're just going to let it play out, and that's not leadership. The leadership, you have to take control of the results of this action, as horrible as they are, and start making a plan that gives you acceptable results. To me, double digits not acceptable. And like I said, some people will say, well, anything is unacceptable. For planning, you have to plan for reality. And reality is once the first shot goes off, you're probably at 1, so you're past 0. You got to get past 0. You can hope for no casualties, but you got to plan like there's going to be casualties tomorrow. If you're not planning like the active shooter's showing up at your place tomorrow and shooting people, you're not adequately planning. You're kicking the can down the road and you're hoping the problem away instead of planning for it.
I think that's a key point, is when we were doing sims on active shooter and school shooter, and we saw programs from schools and programs from businesses, this is how you respond in an active shooter event. It seemed fantasy land. There was a lot of clustering people together or clustering kids together, as opposed to exiting the scene or having any of that. It seemed like they were being crowded into an area which would make them that much more vulnerable.
And we saw that in Sandy Hook. Gathering the kids into a corner just makes them a much easier victim when they show up. And schools like to do things regimented. They like everything the same. So when I was a teacher, and I taught public high school in 2 different states for a number of years, schools like order. So they like to say active shooter drill, and the assistant principal goes around and makes sure every class is doing the exact same thing properly. Okay, the drill is over, we've successfully done it. But hoarding the kids and keeping them in the classrooms, as we saw in Sandy Hook and other places, gets them killed. In Parkland, most of the kids killed on the first floor were killed inside the classrooms. The shooter never entered a classroom. He shot through the door. So there's an illusion of, if we close the door, if we put a door between us and the active shooter, we'll be safe. And Parkland, among other things, proved that just wasn't the case. As I said in the presentation earlier, I was a battalion adjutant, and part of my job was to give a casualty estimate to my commander. Had I ever turned to my commander and said, sir, let's just hope we don't have any casualties during this attack we're going to make, I'd have been fired. That's crazy, and it doesn't do a justice to the unit. Yet we have school principals, school superintendents, leaders of other organizations that have no idea, that don't even attempt to plan out how the attack's going to place and minimize the casualties. Their plan is, well, we'll call 911 as soon as we can and hope for the best. Hope is not a method, hope is not a plan. There's nothing wrong with hope, but you got to get beyond hope and make a plan that realistically has a chance of limiting your casualties.
That's a hard hurdle, I think.
Oh, it's huge. Inertia. And some things like schools, even if you have the support and the desire, the laws will prevent it in a lot of states with the schools. But even when the law doesn't prevent it in other organizations, it's inertia. We're not doing that right now, and that requires a change, and that requires overcoming inertia. Let's just keep doing what we're doing now, and for 99.99% of the organizations, it won't be a problem because he won't attack here. All of us have made a decision once in a while to not wear our seatbelt, and most of the time we don't pay the price for that. But we never know when the drunk driver is going to swerve into our lane, and we never know when the active shooter is going to pick our location tomorrow. We just had Boulder. Colorado, at the grocery store, nobody that was in that store thought they were going to get attacked, or they certainly wouldn't have walked in that store that day. We never know when, we never know why, we never know how many shooters, what time of day. So every organization, whether it be a business, a school, a church, needs to have a plan that they can quickly put into action to limit the number of casualties.
I'm from Colorado. I lived in Boulder. I've gone to that store numerous times.
Oh,
The
wow.
last time I went to that store, it was posted for open carry.
Posted for
It
open.
said, open carry not allowed in this store.
What about concealed carry?
It did not address.
Okay. I have seen some internet things saying that company policy was, but I've yet to see what the door sign
The only thing I
said.
saw on the door, I was there in October, and the only thing that was on the door, because I laughed because I had a concealed weapon that said no open carry in this facility. I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm good. But what would you say to people who are trapped in that grocery store, people who are, caught up in this situation? What options do they have? How do they keep themselves alive in there, knowing that if the entire policy is based on calling 911, you know it's going to be time. You're going to be in the killing zone for X amount of time.
One eyewitness I saw on the news told the news reporter that his best guess, knowing that he was under stress, was that he heard the sirens 4 to 5 minutes after the first shot. So you're going to 45 minutes, as we talked about, waiting for a doctor's appointment is a very short time. 4 to 5 minutes of getting shot at is an eternity.
What's your best case for the people in there? What do they need to do to stay alive?
Every individual has 3 options: fight, flee, or barricade. If you're capable and willing, someone fighting him and stopping him quickly will result in the lowest number of victims. So fighting is the first option. And sometimes even if you don't want to fight, you have to, because he finds you before you can get away. And then the second option is to flee, to get away from him, as far away from him as quickly as you can by running, slithering, low crawling, breaking a window, getting away from the bad guy trying to shoot at you. And then the third option really isn't a choice, it's a default. If you cannot or will not fight and you cannot flee, then you barricade. It's not hide, it's you get behind a door, lock it if it's lockable. Whether it is or not, you pile everything you can move in front of it, and then you don't hide, you wait at the door, because a shooter is the most vulnerable going through a doorway. So you have a welcoming party for him as he tries to force his way through that barricaded door, probably with a long gun, because most of them start with a rifle or a shotgun. He's extremely vulnerable there for someone to take control of his gun and harm him physically, so you can stop it at the doorway.
This week's Triggered is brought to you by Midway USA. Just about everything for shooting, hunting, and the outdoors. Taurus USA, designed to protect. Rock Island Arms Corps, solid as a rock. Volquartsen, engineering the world's finest rimfire rifles, pistols, and parts. And Franklin Armory, making some of the most innovative guns in America.
When I talk to schools, I tell them, you got to empower the kids and tell them they get to make individual decisions on what to do. Oh, teachers don't like that, principals like, no, the kids do what we tell them to do. Well, the kid might be in the bathroom when and he's all alone, he has no suit, he has to make, or she has to make decisions. The kid could be going to the office to make copies or coming back from the office in the hall when this starts out. He has no supervision. He has to decide and act. So they have to be given the authority. You students can do whatever is necessary to save your life or the lives of others. This is a unique, extraordinary, crazy, wild day that is not like any other. So what we would never allow you to do and would punish you for on other days, we won't on this day if it saves lives. We don't want you running off campus without permission, but on this day, if it saves your life, run like the wind. We don't want you breaking windows. We'll punish you for that on any other day. But if breaking a window gets you to safety and other students to safety, you've got to basically get out of jail free card if your actions are to save yourself or other people. They have to be told to do that. And teachers act independently. The teacher in a classroom with the firing right outside their door may do something differently, should do something differently to save lives than the teacher on another floor or way down the hall. So teachers, not one drill where everybody in the school does the exact same thing because that's easy to type and that's easy to come inspect, but everybody does independently. Now that seems unorganized, but it saves the most lives. Run if that's the most thing for you. Fight if you can or will. Barricade if you have no other options. But that's not easy to do. It's not easy to drill. It's not easy to inspect. And a lot of people in authority, like schools, don't like giving up, principals don't like giving up control to teachers. Teachers don't like giving up control to students. But like Sandy Hook, the first classroom that the shooter entered shot the 2 adults first. The only people left were kids. They ran out of the building and ran to safety with no supervision. They can act in crisis and help themselves.
I know that you have drills that you're teaching shooters, so for concealed carry holders that might be in that situation. What kind of training does a concealed carry holder need to be able to deal with an active shooter situation?
I mean, just basic, you need to be able to hit at some distance and know what that maximum distance is. We provide all kinds of multiple day trainings that can hone your skills and make you better mentally and tactically and skill-wise. But the 3 most important things are you present, which means are you in a place where you can hear it or see it? Are you present, close enough to know what's going on? Are you armed? And are you willing to act aggressively? Even if you're very low basic skill, if you have those 3 things, your chance of ending this are pretty good. But beyond that is, again, knowing your maximum distance that you can get 100% hits on a torso under stress. What that translates to is how close do I have to get him once I find him, the active shooter, so that I can guarantee all my hits in him and I get no misses or pass-throughs that hurt innocent people, because active shooters usually happen in crowded places. And then you can add on to that the ability to shoot on the move, which allows you to get to him a lot quicker, and then building clearing skills and shooting within buildings, because most active shooters in our country happen inside buildings. Is that an absolute necessity? No, but it protects you a little bit more, makes you a little more skilled at doing it.
I hope you found that information useful. I know that you will. Thanks to Ed, thanks to Tom, and if you'd like to see more from TACCOM, just check out under our Triggered banner on michaelbain.tv, go to April 7th, and we have a whole episode on that event. I'm Michael Bain. You can find us, of course, on michaelbain.tv. You can find us, of course, on YouTube. And thanks to Midway USA for their support. We'll see you soon.